Every muscle car enthusiast should be aware of these 10 iconic engines. 1. Ford Flathead V8. A Ford Flathead V8 is one of the most antiquated vehicles there is. These engines, which were produced from the 1930s through the early 1950s, were fundamental to the development of the hot rodding subculture. These engines make up for their lack of performance with authenticity and retro design. A Flathead V8 engine's intake and exhaust valves are located inside the engine block, not the cylinder heads, which is an interesting feature. 2. Ford 302-inch 3V8. One of the longest-running engines in American automobile culture is the 302-inch 3 Ford V8. Ford 302 V8s, which debuted in the late 1960s, are still used in contemporary Ford vehicles including the Mustang and the F-150. Even while this V8 may not be particularly large by American standards, with the correct modifications, it may still be a powerful engine. Few automakers have a base motor with a stellar reputation like the Ford 302 does. 3. Dodge 426 Hemi. How am I supposed to mention this engine in a list like this? This might be one of the most well-known engines to ever be found in a muscle car. During the era of the muscle car, it was difficult to locate another engine that was as powerful as the 426 Hemi. Finding a Dodge automobile with a 426 Hemi under the hood that was built between 1965 and 1971 will be challenging. Because it was less expensive and more dependable while still producing comparable power figures, the 440 V8 of the same era gained popularity and replaced the 426 Hemi. Despite this, the 426 Hemi still holds a special place in many people's hearts and minds, where images of six-pack carburetors dance. 4. Chevrolet LS V8. Not many engines are used in as many different automobiles as the LS V8 from General Motors. These engines are widely available in the US, are small and light for a V8 of their engine displacement, and have a lot of power. Due to a pushrod design and, for engines other than truck engines, an aluminium engine block, the compact size and lightweight are possible. Although some could argue that employing them for an engine change is unoriginal, they actually function. In any case, not everyone has the time or resources to convert a Buick Nailhead into a Buick Roadmaster. 5. 6.2-liter Hellcat V8. This is the most potent engine that has ever been housed beneath the hood of an American-made vehicle. To be precise, it has 707 horsepower and 650 pounds-foot of torque. The 6.4-liter Hemi engine was destroked to prevent self-implosion under high boost. To cool an engine that generates a lot of heat, it has two intercoolers close to the blower and a large oil cooler. Sadly, this engine is installed in vehicles that are relatively overweight and have poor mechanical grip. Maybe a 1968 Dodge Charger with drag slicks may fix the issue. 6. 5.2-liter Ford Voodoo Flat Plane Crank V8. The Voodoo V8 in the new Shelby GT 350 is the only American production V8 with a flat plane crankshaft, unless there is something I'm not aware of. An unfamiliar cross-plane crankshaft is seen in practically all other American V8 engines. In comparison to a cross-plane crank V8, a flat-plane crank V8 features a lighter crankshaft, a smaller crankcase, and a lower center of gravity. Flat-plane crank V8s can rev higher and are more sensitive, which makes them almost ideal for driving where a lot of time is spent close to the red line. Given that it is naturally aspirated, this engine generates a lot of power for its size and has a fantastic sound. This engine is for you if you enjoy strong revving horsepower. 7. Oldsmobile Rocket 88 V8. Possibly the first performance V8 ever installed in an American vehicle is this one. This engine first became popular in the early 1950s, when the hot rodding scene was just getting started. It was initially offered as a 303-inch 3V8, but it eventually increased to 324 cubic inches and, at the end of its existence, up to 394 cubic inches. The Rocket 88 would go on to compete in early NASCAR races, competing both on pavement and in the dirt. Count your lucky stars if you ever come upon a Rocket 88 V8, because it very well may be the reason we have so many fantastic muscle vehicles today. 8. Chevrolet 454-inch 3 Big Block V8. The Chevrolet 454 Big Block is for individuals who believe that bigger is always better. The Ford 460 was mainly used in pickup trucks, while the Oldsmobile 455 isn't as well liked. Although these engines don't produce a lot of horsepower, they do produce a ton of torque. Even though they aren't as powerful, 454 V8s can be found in newer model pickup trucks in addition to ancient GM muscle cars. Whether you want a high-end LSX 454 or a basic Ho, Chevrolet Performance still sells big block Chevy V8s today. If you attach some turbochargers to this contraption, you might generate enough power to halt Earth's orbit. 9. Turbo Buick V6. In the world of muscle cars, this engine is quite the anomaly. The Turbo V6 in GM's performance vehicles from the 1980s and 1990s was the first turbocharged American engine that really made a name for itself, even if the Oldsmobile Jetfire was the first turbocharged production automobile. The Buick Grand National, GMC Cyclone, and GMC Typhoon all used this engine. The Cyclone and Typhoon engines were a little bit bigger than the Grand National engines. You can try this motor if you enjoy oddballs. 10. Chevrolet 265C V8. If the Nazi invasion of Poland ignited World War II, the 265C Chevy V8 launched the small block Chevy V8 era. As a much-needed power improvement over the Stove-Bolt inline 6, this engine was initially created to be used in the then-new Corvette. The LS3's grandfather, the 265C V8, has a lot to be proud of, and it appears that the 265C V8 does as well.